Hi everyone, today we're going to be solving AQA GCSE Biology Foundation Tier Paper 2F. In this particular video, we're solving June 2018. The first question shows the food chain in a river. The first organism is algae, then we can see invertebrate animals followed by small fish and a large fish. So the algae will be producer. The invertebrate animal will be consuming the algae, so definitely they are the primary consumer. The small fish feeds on the invertebrate animals, so they are the secondary consumer. And the large fish feeds on the small fish, so they are the tertiary consumer. And since the large fish is in the top of the food chain, so we can also call it apex predator. Draw one line from each scientific term to the correct organism in the food chain. So the scientific term is apex predator. Now, as discussed earlier, apex predator is the large fish because it's the consumer that doesn't have any more consumer above it. So we can call it top predator. So the primary consumer in this case will be the invertebrate animals which consumes on the algae. So they are the primary consumer. And the producers are the algae themselves because they produce the food by using photosynthesis. Table 1 shows the biomass of the organism at each stage in the food chain. We can see algae, which is the producer, has the highest biomass, which is 840, then followed by invertebrate animals, the primary consumer, the secondary consumer, and the tertiary or the apex predator. We can see the biomass in arbitrary unit is decreasing. Biomass decreases mainly due to the fact that not all of the organisms are eaten because many at times organisms have bony portion or portions those that are not edible by the immediate consumer. So they go to decomposition and then also lost in respiration and excretion. Energy is lost in respiration and excretion. The question says calculate the percentage of biomass of the invertebrate animals that is transferred to the large fish. To find out the percentage, the formula is given: biomass of the large fish divided by biomass of the invertebrate animals. So the large fish is 10 and invertebrate animals is 200. So the answer comes 5.0 to 2 significant figure. A large amount of biomass is lost from the food chain. When the small fish eat the invertebrate animal, not all the material is broken down during. Definitely, the word will be digestion. Because in digestion, food molecules are broken down into simpler molecules. The other process that I mentioned here, which is excretion. Excretion will be the loss of waste substances. So, removal of waste. An example of this waste would be carbon dioxide or urea. The next thing we can talk about is respiration. Respiration is the breakdown of nutrient molecules to produce carbon dioxide and water. So we can say glucose broken down to CO2 and H2O by the help of oxygen. Now, this releases a lot of energy as well. Ingestion will be the process of eating. Just simply eating will be ingestion. Filtration would be the process of removal of solid materials from a particular solution. So removing undissolved solids. And coordination comes from the portion of nervous communication. Materials absorbed from the gut may enter the body cells of the small fish. These materials are broken down into carbon dioxide and water by means of respiration, because only in the process of respiration you have seen that it gets broken down to carbon dioxide and water to release energy. The carbon dioxide and other waste materials from the body are removed from the small fish by means of excretion. So in excretion, we remove waste materials such as CO2 and urea. A disease kills many of the small fish. Why does the number of invertebrate animals increase? If we look into the particular diagram, we will see that the invertebrate animals, they are consumed by the small fish. So if the small fish is taken out of the picture, then the invertebrates are no longer eaten by anyone. So their number would rapidly increase. However, the number of algae would rapidly decrease as well, because since there would be more invertebrate animals, they will eat up most of the algae. So we will write fewer invertebrate animals are eaten by the small fish. Figure 2 shows some changes that occur during the menstrual cycle. We can see the process of menstruation. The lining of the uterus is shedding up until day 7 because the thickness of the lining of the uterus is decreasing. From day 7, the lining of the uterus starts to rebuild again. Up until day 28, it is maintained. Figure 2 shows that the lining of the uterus thickens between 7 and 27 days. What is the purpose of the thickening of the lining of the uterus? The lining of the uterus thickens so that it can receive an embryo. So that implantation of an embryo can occur. Now, the other points are to break down waste, which is would be the function of a liver, and to prevent sperm from reaching the egg, all right, which would be function of a barrier method. Which hormone causes thickening of the lining of the uterus? When talking about thickening of the lining of the uterus, the hormone estrogen and progesterone should come in mind. Auxin, which is mentioned here, is a plant hormone. This hormone is needed for cell elongation in plants, specifically in stem. And testosterone, on the other hand, is a male hormone. The purpose of this particular hormone is to build up secondary sexual characteristics. Now, finally, obviously, estrogen is a female hormone which is needed for repairing or thickening the lining of the uterus. On which day is fertilization most likely to occur? So, ovulation, in the diagram, we can see the egg is being released on approximately day 13. So, fertilization can take place from, let's say, day 13 to day 16. We can say day 14. Contraception can be used to lower the chance of pregnancy. Draw one line from each method of contraception to how the method works. First of all, contraceptive pill. Contraceptive pill comes in two different varieties. One is combination pill, which consists of estrogen and progesterone. The other type of contraceptive pill is progestin only pill. Now, both of this type of pill can these are hormones that will prevent new eggs from maturing. So contains hormone to stop eggs maturing. The main reason why we are able to say this, because both estrogen and progesterone or progestin only pill prevents FSH from being released by pituitary gland. The follicle stimulating hormone is prevented by them. Diaphragm is a form of barrier method. So this is acting like a barrier to prevent the sperm from reaching the egg. If we look into the uterus has an entry point at the cervix and then the vagina. So usually the diaphragm cup is placed right in front of the cervix. This is the cervix. This entry point is the cervix. So the diaphragm is acting as a barrier to prevent the sperm from reaching the egg. Now the next thing is spermicidal cream. So sperm, we can already understand what it means. Now, cidal means to kill. That means this will directly kill sperm. We will label it directly kills sperm. 2.5 gives information about some different methods of contraception. Method, diaphragm and spermicidal cream. Number of pregnancies per 100 women in 1 year. 8. Possible side effects. Usually none, but can cause bladder infection in some women. So you can see diaphragm and spermicidal cream has a 92% efficacy, whereas a condom has only 2 pregnancy per year, means 98% efficacy and no possible side effects. When it comes to the contraceptive pill, we can see it is very reliable because 99% of the pregnancy is prevented. However, comes with a lot of side effects like mood swings, headaches, high blood pressure, blood clots, breast cancer, which can be life-threatening. A man and a woman decides to use the condom as their method of contraception. Suggest 3 reasons for this decision. As discussed earlier, we can say it is more reliable than diaphragm and spermicidal cream, and it has a low chance of pregnancy, and also at the same time does not have any side effects. Fossils give evidence about organisms that lived a long time ago. Scientists have found very few fossils of the earliest life forms. Give one reason why. Actually, earliest life forms were mostly soft-bodied. So this can be a very good answer. Okay. So other answer that we can write is the fossil got destroyed or they got buried very deep under the ground that we cannot recover them. Figure 3 is a photograph of a fossilized fish. Suggests how the fossil in figure 3 was formed. As we can see in this particular figure, we can only see the scaly portions. The bony portions of the particular fish is visible and the soft portions are not present. So we can conclude the fish when it died, it got buried in sediment and the soft portions got decomposed or they decayed, whereas a mineralization occurred of the bones. The species of fish shown in figure 3 is now extinct. Give 2 possible causes of extinction. This particular answer, the causes of extinction, first of all, we need to understand what does extinct means. Means this particular organism is no longer living in today's world. So there can be many points we can write. One of the point, because it's a fish and drought can kill it. Other things that we can write is ice age, volcanic activity, asteroid collision, all right. New predators got introduced or new diseases killed them off, maybe competition for food, there were competition for mates, or there were lack of habitat. I'm just going to mention few. You just need to choose two of them, whichever suits your ability to write, and then write that. Modern fish species have evolved from the fish that lived a long time ago. Evolution is caused by mutation and natural selection. What is mutation? So we know that mutation is a change in the DNA or the gene. So the first point will be the answer. Now let's see why the other points are not correct. Accidental damage to an organism. This is a phenotypical damage. So it just changes appearance, does not change a particular organism's gene. An organism with a new characteristics, this can be inherited from one of the parents. Loss of a species will be extinction. Describe the process of natural selection. When we talk about natural selection, the first thing that we need to think is what is natural in this case for selection? When nature chooses a fit organism. So the answer can be approached in this particular way. In any given organism, all right, in any given species, there will always be variation within the members of the same species. For example, if you consider a butterfly of the same species can have different color. Now, one of them will be better adapted for survival. Let's say if a butterfly is green color, then it will be able to hide away from the predator in green leaves. So they are able to reproduce and pass on their favorable alleles to the next generation because they were not eaten, whereas the other colors mainly got eaten. So now, over the course of time, this becomes a new species. In the mid-19th century, a scientist studied inheritance in a pea plant. The scientist's work was beginning of our modern understanding of genetics. What is the name of the scientist? So in the mid-19th centuries, the first scientist who did this particular study at the time was Gregor Mendel. Now, if we talk about the other scientist, Charles Darwin is the theory of evolution. When we talk about Alfred Russel Wallace, we have to also think of theory of evolution, but his work was by natural selection. And John Baptist Lamarck is also known for his theory of evolution, but due to the physical changes in organism. In the mid-20th century, other scientists identified the chemical substance that make up genetic material. What is the name of the chemical substance that make up genetic material? Now, genetic material is made from definitely DNA. So what is DNA made out of? DNA is made out of nucleotides. And let's see why the other ones are not correct. Carbohydrates are mainly made of glucose. Lipids are mainly made of fatty acid and glycerol. And proteins are made of amino acids. A gene often has two alleles. One allele is dominant, the other allele is recessive. When is recessive allele expressed as a characteristics? Now, to understand dominant, this is an allele that is expressed in phenotype when present. And when it comes to recessive allele, only expressed if both alleles are recessive. So, let's see the question. When is a recessive allele expressed as a characteristics? Obviously, when the dominant allele is not present. Let's see the other points why they are not correct. When the recessive allele is inherited from female parent. So, you see, recessive allele inherited from female or male parent only cannot work because it has to be inherited from both parent. When the recessive allele is present on only one of the chromosomes, then recessive allele cannot be expressed. A scientist investigated the inheritance of height of pea plants. The scientist across tall pea plants with short pea plants. We can see a tall plant crossed with short plant resulted in all offspring having tall plants. That means the tall must be dominant, whereas being short must be recessive. The dominant allele for tall is capital T and the recessive allele for short is small t. The first plant's genotype is capital T, which is already given. So if this one is capital T, and since the other one is recessive, must be both recessive, so small t and small t. This makes the offspring heterozygous, capital T and small t. The scientists crossed plant 3 and plant 4. Now we need to complete the figure 5. In figure 5, we can see both parents that are crossing are heterozygous. So we will take the capital T from this box and the small t from this box to represent capital T with small t, and then we will repeat the same process for the other ones. This gives us only 1 out of the 4 homozygous recessive, and this one is homozygous dominant. The next question says, draw a circle around one of the homozygous offspring in figure 5. So since homozygous, circle can be given on the bottom one or the top one. Guys, since the question says only one circle, either tick this one or the top one. The question says, what is the ratio of tall plants to short plants in the offspring in figure 5? If we look into this particular figure, there are 3 instances where there is capital T, and capital T, small t occurred twice. And there is only one instant where there is small t and small t. So we will give the ratio 3 to 1. A person with type 1 diabetes cannot make enough insulin. Which organ makes insulin? We know that insulin is produced by the pancreas. So this will be the correct answer. Also, pancreas produces other digestive enzymes as well. And let's revise what the other glands produce. Adrenal gland produces adrenaline. Pituitary gland produces FSH and LH. Thyroid gland produces thyroxine. The function for the adrenal gland, adrenaline, is a fight or flight hormone, and follicle stimulating hormone stimulates follicle maturation, whereas luteinizing hormone triggers ovulation, and thyroxine stimulates liver to produce more, we can say increases metabolism. Person with type 1 diabetes can control the concentration of glucose in the blood by injecting insulin. So here are a few options to fill in the blanks. Insulin acts on an organ called the liver. Insulin always acts on liver and muscles. So what does insulin do? This organ then takes in excess glucose from the blood and changes the glucose into glycogen. So the effect of insulin works on glucose and basically in liver and muscle cell converts it into glycogen. Insulin cannot be taken as a tablet. This is because insulin is a type of protein. Alright, anything that is taken as a tablet must be ingested and thereby it will go to the stomach. In the stomach, there are acid and also there are enzymes. And the enzyme will digest the protein, which will then convert it into amino acid. What would happen to the insulin in the tablet if it reached the stomach? So the insulin would be digested and it will be broken down into amino acids. 2 people each drank the same volume of glucose drink. Person A has type 1 diabetes. Person B does not have diabetes. So let's look at person A. We can see the person's A's resting blood glucose concentration is very high when the person did not consume any glucose. Whereas the person B, the blood glucose concentration is quite low. Once the person consumes the glucose, in both cases, person A and person B, their blood glucose concentration increases. Now, in person A, blood glucose concentration increases more. So it goes up to 14.2. Whereas in person B, it only goes up to 6.8. Question asks, how much higher was the highest concentration of glucose in the blood of person A than highest concentration in person B? So, in blood of person A, it was 14.2 and person B, 6.8. Since we need the difference between it, so we will do 14.2 minus 6.8, which will give us 7.4. So 7.4 millimole per dm cube was the difference. Describe one other way that the results for person A were different from the results for person B. So let's look into the information. We can see the results of person A is much more higher. Already we talked about it. We will say that the result peaks at a different time, which in the case of person A, it peaks at 60 minutes. Whereas in the case of person B, it peaks at approximately 30 minutes. So the points that we can write for this particular answer, first of all, person A results are much higher. Okay. The second point we can write is that A increases for a longer time, glucose concentration, and it also takes a longer time for it to decrease as well. So 3 options for writing the answer, just write any one of them. Type 2 diabetes is another form of diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is common in obese people. People with type 2 diabetes make enough insulin but still cannot control their blood glucose concentration. This is because the body cells are not sensitive to insulin. Figure 2 shows information about the abdominal fat and insulin sensitivity in body cells. So, type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle-related disease. In this particular figure, we can see as the percentage of abdominal fat increases, the insulin sensitivity is decreasing with it. What type of relationship is shown in this figure 7? Whenever we see a particular relationship like this, where one factor increasing decreases another factor, we will say negative correlation. So a positive correlation is when one factor increase causes another factor to increase. And a no correlation situation occurs when none of the factor can influence the other factor. A person A is at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Suggest 2 ways the person could lower the chance of developing type 2 diabetes. So, since having a lower abdominal fat means the person will have a higher sensitivity to insulin, so the person can try to decrease their abdominal fat. So, to decrease the abdominal fat, the person can eat less carbohydrate in their diet or fat in their diet and do more exercise. Some weed killers are selective. Selective weed killers kill broad-leaved weed plants but not kill narrow-leaved grass plants. Figure 8 shows some weed growing on a grassy lawn. We can see the weed, we can see the grass. Some students investigated the effect of selective weed killer on the weeds growing in a lawn. They used 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter quadrate. One thing to notice, whenever we are using a quadrate of 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter, the area is 0.25 meters square. Now the lawn is 20 meters long and 10 meters wide. This is the method that is used. So the lawn has a 20 meter length and 10 meter width. Okay, so it can be divided into two boxes. We can call one of them side A, then the other one side B. So the student divides the lawn into two halves, side A and side B. Place 5 quadrates in different positions of side A. Place 5 more quadrates in different position of side B. Count the number of weed plants in each quadrate. Spray side A with weed killer and spray side B with the same volume of water. Repeat steps 2 to 4 after 2 weeks. So the student has tried to keep the number of quadrates equal. So this one is a control variable. The student counted the number of weed plants, which is our result. So it will be dependent variable. The student sprayed side A with weed killer solution and side B with water. This is our independent variable. And the reason why we are using water is because we want to keep a control so that we can do comparison. Suggest a method that the student should use to place each of the quadrate. Since the quadrate needs to be placed randomly, so the student can use a random number generator app to place the quadrate by generating coordinates. Give the reason for the method you suggest in question number 6.1. One of the biggest reasons we want to do it randomly is to avoid bias. Now, the other points that are mentioned in the mark scheme includes obtain valid results, explain why the student used water on the side of the lawn instead of weed killer. Now, as we have already discussed about this, water is sprayed so that it acts as a control, so that we can show the effect of spraying the weed killer on side A. Table 3 shows the student's result. Number of weeds per quadrate at the start in side A. We can see 8, 12, 2 and then average is 10. And then after 2 weeks, once we sprayed with the weed killer, the side A had only average of 2. Whereas side B, when we sprayed it with only water, it has average of 9. And side B, when we sprayed it with water, the other average is not done, so we need to do it. Calculate the mean value for X. To calculate the mean value, we'll add all of the numbers on that side and then divide by the number of quadrants, which is 5. The average is 11. So we can see on side B, the average 11, which is close to what we started originally. Calculate the percentage decrease in the number of weeds on side A after 2 weeks. So we can use this equation. Percentage decrease is equals to mean at the start and mean after 2 weeks divided by mean at the start. So mean at the start was 10 and mean at the end of 2 weeks was 2. So 10 minus 2 divided by 10 times 100. So we can see it is 80% effective. One student thought that the results were not valid. Suggest one improvement that the student could have made to the method to make the results more valid. One easy improvement that any student can suggest is that because we used only 5 quadrate, the data cannot be representative. So use more quadrate. Alright. So using more quadrate, so that can be an improvement. The other thing that the student can also say is that the result was taken right after 2 weeks. 2 weeks might not be long enough to kill the weed. Maybe more longer time is needed because we can see the number is still decreasing. So whichever improvement you think of, you also have to give a improvement, a reason how to improve it. So first improvement, we can say use more quadrats, and the reason for that will be the mean will be more reliable. Now, an added point for the improvement would be leave for more than 2 weeks, and the reason for this one, we can write the original is not representative, or we can say the wheat may take more than 2 weeks to the wheat killer may take more than 2 weeks to work. Mycoprotein is a protein-rich food. Mycoprotein is made from the fungus Fusarium. In figure 9, it is showing how the Fusarium fungus is grown in a fermenter. So at the bottom, we can see there is a warm water or cold water there is a cooling coil to cool the fungus if it is generating heat. Then the Fusarium is removed from the bottom portion as well. So, and then it is getting recycled. All right. Some of the Fusarium is then aerated using air, which is driving all the Fusarium upwards. Carbon dioxide is vented out from the upward portion, and the Fusarium is returning back. And once it is returning back, it is given glucose and minerals. So that the whole process is a cyclic process and continues. Now the question asks, explain why the fermenter is sterilized before use. Sterilization is a septic technique. So we want to kill every unwanted bacteria and viruses and also other fungus, because they might be competing with the desired fungus that we want to grow. The other fungus can be toxic. So these are the points that we can write. So the answer that we're going to write, sterilization kills microorganism, or we can say sterilization kills other bacteria, fungi, viruses, or microbes. Then we will write, they may compete for food or produce toxins or kill our desired fungus Fusarium. Cold water is pumped through the cooling coil at point X. This maintains a constant temperature inside the fermenter. Suggest the temperature at which Fusarium grows fastest. Whenever this kind of question is going to be asked, remember that our own body temperature is an ideal temperature. So any temperature close to our own body temperature will be ideal. 5 degrees and 20 degrees Celsius are too low, whereas 85 degrees Celsius is too high. So 30 degrees Celsius should be the correct answer. Glucose and bubbles of air enter the fermenter. The bubbles of air supply oxygen. Explain why Fusarium needs glucose and oxygen. This is an obvious question and easy to answer. Glucose is needed as a respiratory substrate, or needed generally as an energy to growth, and oxygen allows aerobic respiration, or we can just simply write respiration. So the answer can be written, glucose is needed for respiration, or we can say oxygen is needed for respiration. All right. So we will write it together. Glucose and oxygen is needed for respiration, which releases energy for growth. The bubbles of air also move materials around the fermenter. Suggest why it is useful for bubbles of air and materials to move around inside the fermenter. So whenever the bubbles of air is moving the materials, we can say it is ensuring mixing, and also it will allow the heat to get dissipated altogether in the whole of the place, or carbon dioxide to escape. So the answer can be written as follows. So the Fusarium can get sufficient food such as glucose and minerals, and get sufficient oxygen, and can also get rid of sufficient amount of carbon dioxide, or they are kept at a suitable temperature. Only 2 points are needed to get the full marks. 100 grams of chicken meat contains 22 grams of protein. 100 grams of mycoprotein contains 11 grams of protein. A man ate 100 grams of chicken in one meal. So the man gets 22 grams of protein. Now the question asks, how many grams of mycoprotein would the man need to eat to get the same mass of protein as 100 grams of chicken? To do this particular answer, because 100 grams of mycoprotein give 11 grams of protein, we need to multiply 11 with 2, that gives us 22 grams. And we need to multiply the 100 grams with 2, that gives us 200 grams. So 200 grams will be the answer. Some student investigated phototropism in plant seedlings. This is the method that is used. Measure the length of the shoots of 20 seedlings. Set up 4 groups of seedlings as follows. With A, bottom of the shoot covered with aluminium foil. Okay. And B, we can see tip is covered. C, tip is removed. And in D, it is fully exposed to light. Put the seedlings in a cardboard box. Use a lamp to shine a light into the box through the hole from one side. So this is a unidirectional light we are placing here. Now one thing we need to remember, that the tip of a particular plant, the tip produces auxin, which responds to light and dark. So let's see. After 1 day, remeasure the length of the shoot. Make a drawing of the appearance of one seedling from each group. Figure 10 shows the appearance of one seedling in each group at the start of the investigation. We can see A, B, C, and D. Okay, great. Now let's move on. The question says, which two conditions should the student have kept constant for each group of seedlings? Since we have the entire setup in one place, we must have the temperature same as well. So we will say temperature. And the other thing that we always say a plant needs is water. So the watering and the temperature could be kept constant. Let's see the options here. The length of the roots. Well, this is one of the factors that we cannot predetermine. The number of seedlings in each group. Yes, we can keep the number of seedlings in each group constant. This is one of the things that we can keep constant. Then next, we can keep the temperature. Okay, now the number of seedlings in each group we can keep constant, but it does not belong in terms of conditions. So number of seedlings will not be correct. Temperature, yes. The thickness of the aluminium foil cannot affect how much light enters, or if it is thin, then less light enters. It's not like that. So we'll keep that away. And the volume of water added to the soil. Yes, because this is a condition that can influence the growth of a plant. So volume of water added to the soil must be kept constant. Many at times students will give this second point correct, and that's where they're going to get it wrong, because they asked for two conditions and not for the similarities in the number of plants or seedlings being used. What is the purpose of the aluminium foil? Aluminium foil obviously will not allow the light to pass through. So the plant will be at dark. So to stop the light from reaching the shoot. Aluminium will not remove the effect of gravity. Neither will keep the shoot warm because the temperature is already controlled. To hold the shoot straight is also not the purpose of the aluminium foil. Okay, so none of them. Figure 11 shows the student result. We can see the tip of the A got bent. B, nothing happened. C, well, it grew in length, but other than that, nothing happened. And D, it bent towards the light. So we can see the same thing happening at D and A. That means covering the bottom does not have any effect when it comes to light. The mean length of shoot at the start in millimeter, mean length of shoot after 1 day. We can see every one of them has grown. Now we can see C has grown the least, because we can also assume that because it has the least amount of hormones that will allow it to grow, which is auxin. Suggest how the student measured the length of the carved shoots of seedlings A and D at the end of the investigation. Now, to measure a length of a carved shoot, we can use a piece of ribbon. All right, we can use a ribbon and then measure the ribbon using a ruler. Now, the other method that we can do is we can hold the plant straight and then measure using a ruler. So the answer can be written as: place a thread along the shoot and mark the length, then transfer it to the ruler. The students concluded that the tip of the shoot is needed for the plant to respond to light. Give evidence for this conclusion from figure 11. So in figure 11, we can see when the tip is covered, there is no bending, and when the tip is removed, there is no bending. But in both cases, they have grown at least a little bit. All right. In B, it grows just like normal. In C, it didn't grow as much. All right. Now, according to the question, we can write the answer like this. The tip is covered in B and removed in C. So the shoot grows straight up, has not bent towards the light. The tip is exposed in A and D, so they bend towards the light. A hormone stimulates growth in shoots. Which distribution of hormone would cause the results seen in shoot D? So whenever light is hitting from a particular direction, the hormone will be accumulating on the darker side. So this one is not correct. The hormone will not be present in the side where there is light. So this one will be correct because the hormone is present in the darker side. Many human actions are reflexes. Which two of the following are examples of reflex actions? Jumping in the air to catch a ball. This requires an active thinking, so will not be the answer. Raising a hand to protect the eyes in bright light. This one also requires your active thinking. You may not want to raise up your hand to block the light. Releasing saliva when food enters the mouth. Yes, this one you do not have active control on it, so this one will be a reflex. Running away from danger. Running away from danger requires active conscious thinking, so will not be a reflex action. Withdrawing hand from a sharp object. This one is survival related and you will instinctively remove your hand from a sharp object. So this one is a reflex action. Figure 12 shows the size of the pupil of the human eye and can change by the reflex action. By the way, whenever talking about an reflex action, remember that reflex action are involuntary action. So in the portion for Q, we can see that in the portion for A, person A, all right, the condition for A, we can see the person is in dim light. And in B, we can see the person is viewing in bright light. How we can tell? We can see the pupil is smaller, which indicates bright light. In the person A's eye, we can see the pupil is larger. Name one stimulus that would cause the pupil to change from A to B. So definitely the answer will be bright light. Structure Q causes the change in the size of the pupil. Name the structure Q. So structure Q is iris. Iris consists of two types of muscle. One is circular, the other one is radial. So iris will be the structure Q. The next question asks us, describe how structure Q causes the change in the size of the pupil from A to B. Again, as discussed earlier, iris consists of circular muscle and also consists of radial muscle. The circular muscles are self-explanatory. They are circular. And the radials are, as you can see, they run perpendicular. Now, in order for the eye to go from A to B, which is in the contracted state, compared to in A, which is the pupil was larger, so the larger to the smaller one, the circular muscle must contract. Figure 13 shows some structure involved in the coordination of reflex action. We can see receptor followed by a neuron A. So receptor detects a stimulus, generates a electrical impulse, which is then transferred through neuron A. Then through the synapse, neurotransmitter transfers the chemical messages into neuron B, which is a relay neuron. So neuron A is sensory and neuron B is relay because it is located in the spinal cord. Now neuron C must be a motor neuron. So neuron C then brings the information or electrical impulse back to an effector. The effector can be either a muscle or it can be a gland. If it is a muscle, then it will contract, and if it is a gland, then it will release hormone. Describe how the structure shown in figure 13 help to coordinate a reflex action. Now, since we have a 6 marker here, definitely this requires a level 2 answer. To get level 2, it must be scientifically relevant. We need to identify the events and the processes that occur and give details with accurate account. So if we can do that, then we will get 6 marks. So how we can write the answer? First, we can say the receptor detects a stimulus. Once the receptor detects a stimulus, such as, for example, pressure, the receptor generates electrical impulse which passes through the sensory neuron into the relay neuron. Now, between the sensory and the relay neuron, there is a gap where the electrical impulse is converted into chemical messages such as neurotransmitter, and then it goes to relay neuron. From relay neuron, the information is then relayed to motor neuron. The motor neuron then carries the electrical impulses, into the effector, which is either a muscle or a gland. If it is a muscle, then it contracts, and if it is a gland, then it secretes chemicals such as hormones. Many scientists think that the global air temperature is related to the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Figure 14 shows changes in global air temperature and changes in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We can see from 1960s to 2010, carbon dioxide concentration, even though it increased and decreased, but steadily kept on increasing until it reached a 420, we can say 420 parts per million. And when it comes to temperature, now if we extrapolate the data for the temperature, in the beginning, the temperature decreased, followed by an increase, which then keeps on increasing and then plateaus in the last 20 years. So we have to choose the constant, decreasing or increasing from the box, and give the trend in carbon dioxide concentration. Between 1960s to 1977, we can see the concentration of CO2 is increasing. Okay, 1977 to 2003, it keeps on increasing. So we can write increasing in both of them. Now the trend in air temperature between 1960s to 1977, we can see it decreases a little bit. Then we can see increase, and then we can see it plateaus. So for plateauing, we can say constant. Many scientists think that an increase in carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere causes an increase in air temperature. How would an increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere cause an increase in air temperature? Because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, so we will say how it works as a greenhouse gas. Carbon dioxide traps heat energy or infrared radiation. Evaluate evidence for and against the theory that an increase in concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere cause an increase in air temperature. Now, of course, we have to give information for the theory and against the theory. To get a level 2 mark, all right, we have to have logically linked reasons, all right, and we can also give a simple judgment. So we can see that the CO2 concentration actually does cause, in average, to increase in temperature. As we can see, we have an increase in temperature by this much. So we will give a point for the theory. Overall increase in CO2 also increases the temperature because CO2 traps infrared radiation. Now, in terms of against the theory, we can say, for example, all right, between 1960s and 1977, even though the CO2 was increasing, but the temperature still decreased. So we can say there might be other unknown factors that may be involved in temperature change. In each year, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is higher in the winter than in summer. Give one human activity that could cause the higher concentration of carbon dioxide in the winter. We may use a lot of fossil fuel during the winter to keep our house warm. Give one biological process that could cause the lower concentration of carbon dioxide in the summer. So in the summer, the temperature is generally higher. Temperature is higher. That means faster rate of photosynthesis can occur. So we'll just say photosynthesis. Give two possible effects of increase in global air temperature on living organisms. So some plants will grow faster and will produce a higher yield, whereas some habitats which are at a higher temperature, they can die and they might be lost. So animals will need to migrate or they will get extinct. So 4 points are here. You only need to write 2 points. It is important to maintain water balance in the body. Figure 15 shows how much water a person gained and lost by different methods in one day. So we can see water gained by the body. By drinking method, it's the highest. From metabolism, it's the lowest. And from food, it's nearly 500 cm cube. Now, on the other one, we are seeing how the water is lost. In urine, it's almost the same as, it is exactly the same as what the person drank. In skin, it's 400. And through breathing, it's 380. When water is balanced, the volume of water taken in by the body is equal to the volume of water lost from the body. Calculate the volume of water that the person lost in one day in feces. So we need to do the addition of the drinking, which will be 1500 plus 500 plus 400, which is total 2400, and water lost, which is 1500 plus 400 plus 380. 2280. So water lost in feces will be 2400 minus 2280, which is 120 cm cube. Figure 15 shows that one method of gaining water is by metabolism. Which metabolic process produces water? Whenever we are breaking down glucose or fat molecule to release energy, then we will release metabolic water. But the question says breakdown of protein to amino acid. This process actually requires water. This is called hydrolysis. Changing glycogen to glucose. Changing glycogen to glucose is also hydrolysis because it's going from larger molecule to smaller molecule. Digestion of fat produces fatty acids and glycerol, which is also a process of hydrolysis. So all of this process, they lead to hydrolysis. Now, only respiration of glucose produces water. Respiration of fat also produces water. So this is how metabolic water is received. The next day, the person ran a 10-kilometer race. The volume of water lost from the body through the skin and by breathing increased. Explain why more water was lost through the skin during the race. During the race, definitely the person is exercising, so the body temperature increases. So overall, more sweating occurs. Our key point is explain. So we will say, because the person exercises more, heat is released. So the person sweats more. Explain why more water was lost by breathing during the race? To answer this particular question, we will say that more energy is needed by the body when the person is running. So definitely the person needs to do more aerobic respiration. And to do more aerobic respiration, the person needs to gain more oxygen. To supply more oxygen and remove more carbon dioxide, the person needs to increase breathing. Because the question says explain, so we have to give it in a logical sequence. Guys, thank you for watching this particular video. I hope this particular video helps you answer more questions like this. Videos like this will be uploaded every day, guys. So subscribe to the particular channel. And for those of you who are foundation student, definitely I will upload all of the foundation questions and I will put them in a playlist. The chemistry foundation questions are already in a playlist for paper 1F and 2F. So you may want to check out that particular playlist, all right, if you have chemistry. And going forward, I will definitely also upload the physics question papers, foundation tier 1s, all right. And definitely I'll upload the higher tier ones. So if you have any friends, those that are doing the higher tier ones, definitely tell them to subscribe as well. See you in the next video, guys. Best of luck for your exam. Bye-bye.